The hall smells of wax and steel, and too many perfumes trying to hide the bite of fear. Omegas stand in a gleaming row, jeweled and painted like offerings laid out for a god who might be merciful if impressed. I shouldn't be here. My hands still remember the rough bark of the trees behind my cottage, the weight of bandages and herbs, not silk. But my council signed my name at the bottom of a treaty they barely understood, trading one fertile omega of ravencrest for walls and warriors. I keep my charcoal hood up, fingers tight around the simple cord at my throat where a tiny carved raven's claw rests against my skin. The only thing my mother left me. When the doors open and he enters, every muscle in the hall tenses. Matthias is all iron and leather and shadow, dark braids falling over broad shoulders, sword at his hip like it belongs there more than he does anywhere else. He should look at the jeweled girls. Instead, his gaze cuts through the line and catches on the plain girl in the cloak. On me. That one, he says, his voice like gravel and smoke. The omega in gray. Bring her to my chambers. My freedom just became a bet. I have one night to win. The king's guards do not touch me more than they have to, but their silence feels like a hand around my throat. Boots beat a slow drum against the stone as we climb deeper into the fortress, away from the echoing roar of the great hall. Torches spit and hiss along the walls, throwing orange light over carved wolves and battle scenes that follow us like watching eyes. I keep one hand fisted in the wool at my throat, thumb pressed hard against the little raven's claw beneath, as if I could grind my fear into it instead of letting it pulse through my veins. The lead guard stops before a massive door, dark wood banded with iron, flanked by stone wolves whose eyes seem to glint in the torchlight. He knocks once. A deep voice answers from inside. Send her in alone. Of course. Isolation first. Break the omega away from the pack, then from herself. That was what the whispered stories said. Do as he says, the guard murmurs, and his fingers tremble just enough for me to notice. And remember the treaty. As if I could forget. He opens the door and steps aside. No one tries to push me forward. Perhaps they know I would go anyway. A true coward would have tried to bolt long before the private wing. I draw one breath, then another, then I walk through. The chamber is bigger than the entire lower floor of my cottage. My first impression is of warmth, a fire thundering in a massive hearth, heat rolling through the room and carrying the scent of pine resin, leather, and something darker. Male. Wild. Unmistakably him. Matthias stands with his back to me, facing the fire. He has stripped off the heavier plates of his armor. Black leather hugs his shoulders and chest. His dark hair is loose from the war braid he'd worn in the hall, falling in thick ropes down his back. The door clicks shut behind me. Then there is nothing but the crackle of flames and the slow, measured rhythm of his breathing. He finishes the task he's been doing, setting a poker back into its stand before turning. The stories had not mentioned his eyes. They are not simply dark. They are layered, shadow-ringed with warmer brown flecked with gold that the firelight wakes. For a heartbeat, those eyes drift over me. Then they return to my face and stay there. Rowan of Ravencrest, he says. My name sounds strange on his tongue, more solid than it had ever felt in my own mouth. I force my chin up. Your Majesty. He watches me for a long moment. When he finally moves, it's not toward me, but toward a small table where a decanter and 2 cups wait. Wine? He asks. Not if it's drugged, I say before I can stop myself. I'd rather keep a clear head. One corner of his mouth twitches. You think I'd have to drug you to get you into my bed? I think you don't know me, I reply. That earns me a spark in his eyes that might be amusement. Fair enough. He pours only 1 cup and takes it for himself. Come closer, Rowan. I don't like shouting across rooms. Every instinct tells me to stay where I am, but I make myself walk forward. When I reach what I judge a safe distance, I stop. Is this close enough? For now. His gaze searches my face. You're shaking. No, I'm not. I was. My whole body buzzed like before a storm. Fear? he asks. Anger, I say quickly. Then, because it's pointless to lie to a predator who can smell it on me, I add, some fear. He takes a slow sip of wine. Good. Fear keeps people from making foolish choices. He sets the cup aside. Let's take care of the bargain before either of us starts imagining we have more than we do. The word bargain cuts through the room like a clean blade. He steps toward me. I hold my ground, every muscle screaming, but I refuse to step back. To my surprise, he stops at arm's length, hands visible at his sides. In the hall, he says, I gave your counsel's messenger my terms. I will give them again to you, and only once, so there can be no mistake. I swallow. I'm listening. One night, he says. From now until dawn. In my bed. You will not be chained. I will not beat you. I will not put my mark in your neck. When first light touches the highest window, if you are still here, still breathing, you walk out with a sealed decree that names Ravencrest under my permanent protection. No more tributes, no more raids. His voice doesn't rise, doesn't soften. It's flat, practical. And if I refuse? I ask. The treaty burns. The protection ends. He doesn't look away. My borders are contested. There are alphas who would welcome an undefended village on the edge of my lands. My stomach turns, thinking of the children who came to my cottage with scraped knees and fevers. And if I run? I press. A muscle in his jaw ticks. I will not chase you. But the decree will never be written. What other alphas do to an unclaimed, unprotected omega outside my walls is their choice, not mine. The cage behind one door. Open sky and teeth behind the other. You make it sound almost generous, I whisper. I make it sound honest, he says. There are kings who would simply take what they want and send the scraps home. I prefer contracts to chains. Contracts can be chains. Only if you sign the wrong ones. His eyes hold mine. This one you sign with time, with endurance. Not blood. Not blood. No mark. My neck throbs anyway. I draw a breath that feels like swallowing broken glass. And if I fail? If I can't endure until dawn, do you still protect Ravencrest? His silence stretches heavy. No, he says finally. My word is not a river I can redirect when it becomes inconvenient. If you don't keep your part, I cannot keep mine without teaching my enemies that my promises are soft. I hated that this made sense. I hated even more that part of me respected it. I thought of my cottage, of the herb-drying racks and the little window that looked over the stream. I thought of going back there knowing I had chosen myself and no one else, and of never seeing that cottage again because the next raid burned it to the ground. The choice narrowed itself into a single blinding line. I endure, I say, and my voice sounds distant to my own ears. Until dawn. Whatever you ask that does not break the terms you just gave me. I will survive. His eyes darken with something heavier. Responsibility, maybe. Think carefully, Rowan, he says. This is the moment you cannot take back. I already couldn't take it back, I whisper. They sent me the moment they sealed that treaty. This is the first thing that is mine to choose. He studies me like a man examining a blade for hidden cracks. Then he nods once. Very well. We have a bargain. He extends his hand between us, palm open. When my fingers finally slide into his, heat sears up my arm, startling in its intensity. His hand closes around mine, firm but not crushing. For an instant, the room, the fire, the stone, all of it fades beneath the sharp, visceral awareness of that contact. Something inside me shivers, deep and inexplicable. Welcome to my mercy, Rowan of Ravencrest, he murmurs. I tighten my grip. Welcome to my terms, Your Majesty. His mouth curves, slow and dangerous. Dawn feels very far away. The hours that follow are not what I expected. He orders a bath prepared in a chamber carved straight into the stone. Take your time, he says. No one comes in unless you call. When I emerge, scrubbed clean and wrapped in a simple cream gown, he's waiting by the fire. The armor is gone. He wears only a dark linen shirt, laces loose at his throat. Without all that metal, he seems no less dangerous, only different. Less like a statue carved from iron, and more like a man built from flesh and heat. Sit, he says, gesturing to a chair opposite his. I do, easing onto the edge. He reaches for the decanter. You refused wine earlier. My offer stands. I don't trust things given freely by kings. Nothing here is free. He pours into one cup. Consider it payment for your answers. What answers? About Ravencrest. About the work you do. About the people I just bought with your body. Bought. At least he doesn't pretend otherwise. That honesty steadies me more than a gentler word might have. What do you want to know? Everything, he says simply. We'll start smaller. You're a healer. Yes. Herbs, poultices, midwifery. Broken bones, infected cuts, winter cough. I mend what I can, comfort what I can't. And who taught you? My mother died when I was 8. The village healer took me on, partly from pity, mostly because she needed hands that could carry water. How many people live in Ravencrest? Too few when the raiders are hungry. Too many when winter stores run thin. A corner of his mouth lifts. You speak like someone who's counted every mouth. I have. Someone had to. He drinks, gaze never leaving my face. So when you agreed to my terms, you weren't just thinking of yourself. No. I was thinking of every child whose ribs I can count through their shirts. Silence settles between us. The fire pops. You hate this bargain, he says. Yes. But you don't hate me. I startle. You sound very sure of that. If you hated me, you would have spat in my face in the hall. You didn't. You walked. Walking and liking are not the same thing. No. His gaze drifts to the scars on his own forearm. But I have seen hatred. It smells like iron and storm. You smell like fear and rosemary and stubbornness. Heat climbs my neck. You can smell stubbornness? Yes. His eyes cut back to mine. Now drink. You'll need your throat for talking. Against my better judgment, I raise the cup. And somewhere between the wine and the warmth and the way he asks about my village like it matters, the fear begins to ease. Not disappear. Just ease. Tell me, he says quietly, much later when we're closer than we were at first. Does Ravencrest get much snow? I blink. Some. Enough to make the children wild. Not enough to keep the traders away. Why? I'm trying to decide if you've ever seen the fortress in winter. I've never seen your fortress at all. Until they handed me over at the gate, the closest I'd been was a rumor. His mouth curves. And now that you've met me, am I worse or better than the monster they described? I should say worse. Instead, different. Different how? You ask, I say. The monster in the stories never bothered. I only ask when the answers matter. His gaze drops briefly to my throat, then returns to my eyes. Yours do. The words settle in my chest, dislodging something hard I've kept there for years. His hand lifts, then pauses halfway. May I? May you what? Touch you. Every lesson I've taught myself whispers no. Every instinct burning under my skin wants to lean into that waiting palm. One touch, I say. For now. His lips tilt. For now. He reaches the rest of the way, fingers brushing my jaw, then settling along the side of my face. His palm is warm, calloused, surprisingly gentle. I don't pull away. His thumb traces the edge of my cheekbone, slow and reverent. There, he murmurs. That's better. What is? Being this close without the hull watching. Without the armor. I should not like the way he says that. I should not like the idea of haunting anyone. But the shiver that runs through me has nothing to do with fear. The night deepens. We talk. We touch. The boundary between conversation and something more blurs until I'm not sure where one ends and the other begins. He tells me about the night he inherited his throne, 17 years old, watching his father die from poison while nobles waited to see if they could claim the crown for themselves. I stood, he says quietly. I drew my father's sword off his body, and I asked who among them would like to test whether I'd die before I took a few of them with me. I trace a jagged scar along his ribs. What's this one? An omega, he says. Small, fragile looking. Shaking so hard I almost didn't feel the blade go in. My hand stills. What? Another King's Hall. Before I learned better. She poured my wine, then drove a poisoned blade between my ribs while the court applauded. His voice is flat. Her king had sent her to make sure I didn't leave alive. By the time the guards reached us, she was already gone. I'm sorry. I'm not the one you should pity. She died believing she'd failed. His hand slides to my hip. I lived. And I swore I'd never be that kind of king. You distrust easy submission because you've seen what it can hide. Yes. His thumb strokes absently. Since then, a bowed head tells me less than a clenched fist. I turn in his arms until I can see his face. Your turn. What did they call you back in Ravencrest? The question lands like a stone. Too stubborn to place. That was the council's phrase. Like livestock that won't go into the right pen. That's exactly how they meant it. Bitterness steals into my mouth. When the treaty came, they saw a chance to make me someone else's problem. His fingers tilt my chin. They were fools. A pack that discards the wolf who guards its den deserves every storm that follows. I'm not a wolf. Could have fooled me. We lie there, bodies tangled, and somewhere between his scars and my anger, the picture changes. Now I see a boy choking on poison. An omega bleeding out on a foreign floor. A woman bartered away by the people she mended. We've both been betrayed by the hands that should have shielded us. When he leans in and kisses me this time, it tastes like a truce neither of us signed aloud. Hours later, the fire has burned low. My skin still buzzes with heat. Matthias stretches beside me, one arm around my waist as if his hand found that curve by instinct. Your heart's racing, he murmurs. There's a draft. There's no draft, Rowan. Then maybe I'm just regretting my life choices. His low laugh curls through me. I can work with regret. Stop talking. Your scent says you didn't like that at all when I stepped away. I glare at him. Stop smelling my scent. That would be like asking the moon not to pull the tide. I want to argue. Instead, my fingers curl in the furs. It's just chemistry. Bodies reacting. I've had enough bodies in my bed to know this is not just anything. Jealousy pricks sharp and hot before I can smother it. He rolls onto his side, close enough that I feel his breath. Have you ever heard the old legend? About the echo-bound? The what? Omegas whose souls echo a king's power. They were once called crownmates, fated to stand at his side, to balance him, to keep him from becoming a monster. That sounds like something kings invented to excuse bad behavior. Maybe. His fingers find my hair. But when I scented you at the border, when I saw you in the hall tonight, when I touched you. His eyes darken. It felt like someone had taken that story and slammed it into my ribs. Dramatic. You feel nothing when I touch you? I open my mouth to say yes. My body warns me against the lie. Heat stirs low at just the memory of his hands. That's what I thought, he says softly. Even if this ridiculous legend were true, it doesn't matter. I have a life, a village. You have a kingdom and enemies. You're already in one story, he replies. You just haven't decided the ending. The words press on places inside me I've kept sealed. Panic scrapes up my throat. Stop, I say. I agreed to one night, not to be recast as some mythical mate. His hand cups my face, thumb brushing my cheek. Rowan. I don't need stories to keep you here. I need only one thing. What? Your choice. At dawn. The words settle over my panic like a cloak. Gods, you talk too much, I mutter. And then I lean in and kiss him just to stop the words. A knock comes when I'm half asleep against his chest. Matthias goes still. Stay. He sits up. Enter. A young wolf steps inside, head bowed. My king. Scouts return from the eastern ridge. Alpha Kieran is massing troops along the Ravencrest border. The name hits like cold water. Kieran, the Alpha whose men we patched up because turning them away would bring worse. My hand fists in the sheet. Matthias's jaw hardens. How many? At least 3 companies. Signal fires. No banners yet. Matthias glances toward the windows. Send word to Commander Vale. 2 companies to the eastern forts now. Patrols doubled around Ravencrest. No levy from the villagers. Relief eases the tightness in my chest. And send a raven to Kieran, Matthias adds, gaze on me. Remind him that treaty lines haven't moved. If his men cross, he answers to me. When the door closes, the intimacy shifts. He's going to Ravencrest, I say. Isn't he? He's testing how far he can lean before I shove back. Because of me. Because of power. You're the excuse, not the reason. I slide off the bed. If I leave tomorrow, if I walk away, what happens? Exactly what I promised. Ravencrest stays under my protection. This isn't conditional. Kieran doesn't care about promises. And he's about to find out how sharp my teeth are. Matthias stands. With or without you. The room feels too small. How do you breathe? With all of it, the fortress, the world, treaties, villages who curse you and still depend on you? His mouth twists. I don't. Not much. He takes my hand. You asked what happens if you leave. Here's the truth. Kieran will watch you go. He'll test my borders harder. I won't care less. I'll still send men. I'll still bleed for villages that curse my name. Why? Because they didn't choose. Most never had a say. I don't punish peasants because their alphas are idiots. We fall quiet. The politics won't stop, he says eventually. You stay, they move. You go, they move. The difference is what you get to do about it. What I get to do. Yes. If you stay, you don't become a silent omega at court. You become queen alongside me. You get a voice in councils where men talk about your people like numbers. Queen. The word is alien. The too stubborn to place healer from a border village. And if I say no? If dawn comes and I walk out? He squeezes my hand. Then I still send troops. I still face Kieran. I still wake up knowing I let my echo bound go. He lifts our joined hands to his mouth, brushing his lips over my knuckles. At dawn, you choose. But know this, you are not powerless, Rowan. Not anymore. For the first time, the terror cracks enough for something else to shine through. not hope. Not yet. But the possibility of it. Midnight brings something unexpected. There's a place I want to show you, Matthias says. He leads me down a narrow stair I didn't know existed. The air cools with each turn. At the bottom, he touches a sequence of worn stones. A door loosens. Secret doors, I murmur. Of course. If you're going to be queen, you should know where they are. The chamber beyond is circular, carved from bedrock. Candles ring the walls. In the center stands a cracked stone altar, blackened across its surface. Around it, cut into the floor, a ring of runes. What is this? The Shrine of Wolves, Matthias says softly. Where the first wolf kings swore their mate bonds under the old gods. My heart pounds. Your mother believed in this? She believed in balance. Said a king without a true mate becomes a weapon pointed at his own people. And now? Now I've met you. Heat slides up my neck. How does it work? If the old tales are true, when two who are meant stand together inside the circle, the altar remembers. The fire wakes. Shows them what they could be. And if it doesn't? Then it's just rock and soot, and I'm a fool. He extends his hand across the carved line. You can turn around. Or you can step in with me and see if the old stories are more than smoke. I stare at his hand. Fear claws at my throat. But there's another terror, going back upstairs and always wondering. I hate you, I murmur. Good. You'll need that too. My fingers slide into his palm. On 3, he asks. Don't count. Just move. Together, we cross the edge. The altar flares. Not with flame at first, but with light, a sudden blinding pulse that wraps us in white gold brilliance. Images slam into me. I see myself on fortress walls, wind tearing at my hair as I shout orders. Matthias stands beside me, shoulders touching. The scene shifts. I'm in a crowded hall, not as tribute, but as host. Crown braided in my hair, hand on a map. Matthias watches, then glances at me. I shake my head. He cuts through the noise with one word. Another shift. A garden inside the fortress. Children run between beds. One falls. I'm there before the cry escapes, cupping his face. When I look up, Matthias watches with a softness I've never seen. More visions. Battles. Arguments. Laughter. Through it all, we are side by side. The light dims slowly. When it fades, I'm back in the chamber, knees threatening to give out. Matthias looks as shaken as I feel. Well, he says hoarsely. That answers that. It could be a trick. Do you believe that? I think of the wall, the map, the garden. No. He steps closer. Rowan. I can't promise the future will look exactly like what we saw. But I can promise this, if you stay, it will be as my partner, not my possession. And if I ever forget, you have my blessing to drag me back here. The runes hum beneath our feet. You're putting a lot of faith in a woman your counsel called too stubborn to place. Yes. That's exactly why. Dawn finds me at the window. Pale light seeps through. Beyond the walls lies Ravencrest. My cottage. Freedom. But the vision left an ache. Every time I blink, I see what the fire showed me. Behind me, Matthias stirs. Rowan. You're still here. Dawn hasn't finished breaking. He crosses to me. I had this drawn up while you slept. He holds out a folded parchment. The decree for Ravencrest. Permanent protection. You're giving me this before I tell you my choice. Yes. My word isn't a leash. I could walk out now. He wouldn't stop me. Slowly, I step away from the window. I lay the decree on the table, smoothing it flat. I'm not leaving, I say. His eyes widen. Rowan. I know. That's why I'm staying. I meet his gaze. I'm not staying as your consolation prize. Not as the grateful Omega you bought. I am Rowan of Ravencrest. I am a healer. If I stay as that woman. Good. The woman from the visions didn't look soft. What do you want, Rowan? In your own words. The answer has been building all night. I want both. Ravencrest safe. I want to keep healing, not just in one village, but across all the ones like it. I want a say in how you wield that crown. My throat tightens. And I want what we saw. The walls, the garden, you. But only if I can have all of it without disappearing. He takes a careful step closer. When you walk into my hall, you will do it at my side. When we sit council, there will be a chair for you. When we ride to Ravencrest, you'll be in armor if you wish. Armor? I'm not letting the woman I plan to spend my life arguing with bleed out. The phrase "plan to spend my life with" crackles between us. He lifts his hand. May I? Yes. His fingers brush my skin. Rowan of Ravencrest. Will you stay? As queen, as my mate, as my partner, because you choose it? My heart pounds. I choose. On one condition. His brows rise. Only one? You don't get to decide who I am. You don't get to soften my edges. He smiles. Agreed. I like your edges. He offers his other hand. I slide mine into it. Then, my queen, he murmurs. Shall we go ruin a few nobles' mornings? My laugh bursts out. Gladly. We walk to the doors together. When they swing open and we step into the corridor, the guards straighten, eyes widening. By the time we reach the great hall, word has outrun us. Conversations stutter. Nobles turn. I feel their gazes like arrows. Once that would have made me want to shrink. Now I think of walls and gardens and children who might need to see a woman stand here and not flinch. I square my shoulders. Matthias's fingers tighten around mine. We cross the threshold together. When we reach the center, Matthias stops, lifts our joined hands, and lets the silence do the work. This, he says, voice carrying easily, is Rowan of Ravencrest. The Omega you watched me claim last night. The woman who endured and chose and now stands as your queen. A dozen emotions flicker across faces. Shock. Outrage. Grudging respect. I lift my chin. Let them look. I am not here by accident. I am here because I chose to be. And somewhere past forests and rivers, in a village that signed me away, dawn touches rooftops and fields that will not burn today. My crown. My choice. My beginning.